Hello, everybody. I'm just going to give about 2 more minutes to allow for some more people to join. So you are in the right spot. You're here at the right time, right place. Just give us a moment so that we can make sure more people can join. To allow for some more people to join. So you are in the right spot. You're here at the right time, right place. Just give us a moment so that we can make sure more people can join. To allow for some more people to join. So you are in the right spot. You're here at the right time, right place. Just give us a moment so that we can make sure more people can join. To allow for some more people to join. So you are in the right spot. You're here at the right time, right place. Just give us a moment so that we can make sure more people can join. To allow for some more people to join. So you are in the right spot. You're here at the right time, right place. Just give us a moment so that we can make sure more people. Just checking in again, everybody. We're going to be starting about 5 minutes after, just to let some more people join, and we'll get going. Thank you for your patience. Just checking in again, everybody. We're going to be starting about 5 minutes after, just to let some more people join, and we'll get going. Thank you for your patience. Just checking in again, everybody. We're going to be starting about 5 minutes after, just to let some more people join, and we'll get going. Thank you for your patience. All right, we're at 5 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and get going. Thank you all for your patience, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Christopher Bonanno, and I'm a CSS here at Cisco, focused around observability. And today we're going to be going over Splunk AppDynamics licensing. It gets very complex, very confusing. So trying to understand this, especially if you're early on in your journey of AppDynamics, or if you're an active user of the product and you're going to be maybe a decision maker or an implementer. You want to know how you're going to be impacting the overall, maybe it's a shared services team or your organization's use of the product or multiple products that are all going towards the same monitoring goals of making sure your infrastructure and your digital assets are all well monitored and taken care of. So this is meant to help you guys with understanding. It's not meant to be used for any sort of resale or repackaging. And at the same time, it is up to you guys to make the right decisions. I can't own any responsibility if you guys make a wrong move by not following information in the documentation and such. Obviously, I want to try to get the information to you, correctly. So if you have any questions or you get stuck, there's always an account team that you have access to, or if you need a CSS, a customer success specialist, or basically a technical engineer that is trained in observability and on the products that you're purchasing. If you have any questions where we can jump in and help, you can always raise a call a consultant request, and I can provide that in the chat as well in the description of the video on the recording later on. So for the agenda, we're going to go over a licensing overview, kind of how it works, what you would see in the two different types of modeling, what type of models are there even, and then we're going to talk more on the products that would be kind of more of an add-on, or how to extend the use of Splunk AppDynamics. Maybe it's dealing with Splunk core and dealing with the log things, or what if you're interested in the secure app, Cisco Secure App, which is a big part of Splunk AppDynamics. Which ones you would have to pay for, which ones would be considered, pay add-ons versus freebies. And then we're going to go more into licensing rules, explain the importance of them, when you would use them, why, and then we would take that into a demo so that I can kind of explain further. Sometimes, the visual aspect of it just makes it a lot easier for you to learn, and especially if you're more of a user and not necessarily a person purchasing AppDynamics, Splunk AppDynamics, it's more something that you're likely to do with your hands on it. So following along with that is going to help you a lot. And then we'll have some closing thoughts, and we'll leave time for Q&A at the end. Now, we might not take up this whole time. This is a kind of an easier topic, honestly, because there is a lot of good supported documentation as well when you're in your early journeys of purchasing Splunk AppDynamics. You are partnered up with an account team, the account team with an architect and everybody, making sure that when you're purchasing, you should be purchasing something that fits not only your digital landscape, but also fit your organization and your budget. So without further ado, though, let's go ahead and start jumping into the licensing overview. So there are two licensing models for Splunk AppDynamics products. There's an infrastructure-based licensing, and then there's also the agent-based licensing. Now, if depending on when you purchased, or maybe when you renewed, or maybe you just decided to change over to something that is a little more manageable for you, you may be in the infrastructure-based license if you purchased after February 23rd, 2021. If you purchased before then and are a long-standing customer, you're probably on our more classic agent-based licensing. And now you can kind of understand the idea of it. the infrastructure based modeling is more based around how the layout of your infrastructure, how many virtual cores are running in there, and then which products you're going to be combining together. And it might stack into one of the, and it'll make a lot more sense on the next couple slides with charts and tables and everything, making a lot more, or explaining a lot more what's going on with the licensing breakdown. But just understand that it, as a base concept, that it is based around more of your infrastructure, what's running on that infrastructure, and which monitoring solutions you're going to couple together, versus an agent-based licensing model where it's strictly one-to-one. You have so many APM licenses, you have so many server monitoring or infrastructure monitoring or database monitoring, and it's all one-to-one. So it seems very simple, but we've noticed, especially with gigantic scalable environments, it gets very complex. So depending on what your need is as a customer, we would put you in one or the other. And then also, of course, there's the if you, depending on when you purchased, you're more likely to have one or the other. So let's talk more about the infrastructure-based modeling. So now, after the 23rd of February, 2021, if you purchased Splunk AppDynamics, you're most likely in the infrastructure-based licensing model. And now this is, you're basically, your account will include a subscription license for each product that you purchased during the registration. And a subscription can be one or more model, and have multiple subscriptions in each of their distinct lifestyles. And then, beyond just, it being a subscription based, it's also done by one license per vCPU. So your virtual processor core, you would get one license per that. I know some of our competitors do it that way, maybe slightly different, but largely, it's very similar in how we do it, where you're going to be charged one license. And then what does that one license get you? It could be more, combined, which is going to make a lot more sense on the next slide. So I'm having a little difficulty finding the word, sorry. But basically, you might have essentials, premium, or if you're dealing with APM on that side, versus on the end user monitoring, where you're dealing with a peak and a pro, where you might get analytics along with the EUM, or you might get transaction analytics with the APM, versus you might not need any of that, and you might just need essentials. So it allows you to kind of pick and choose your one license, for the virtual core that you're running, and it might be a premium one, which includes more versus more of the basics. And again, this will make a lot more sense on the next slide, so just bear with me. All right, so here we go. Something more black and white, or with green in there. So now if you look at it and you're looking at an application monitoring package, so the enterprise license, one license will give you an APM, transaction analytics, network visibility, server visibility, database monitoring, and it might, depending on what you're needing, that would be sufficient, or that might be overkill for you, and at which point you might want the premium, which shows that it just has the application performance monitoring without the transaction analytics. It does have infrastructure monitoring, which is the network visibility, server visibility, and database monitoring, but it probably won't have, it doesn't have the BIQ. It doesn't unleash the full potential of Splunk AppDynamics for your monitoring needs, but it is allowing you to get by. And honestly, pretty darn good too. You're getting the APM and all the infrastructure monitoring that you need, but you don't get any of the analytics. And realistically, if you have messed with analytics, you understand how powerful it is and how useful it is. So of course, I'm going to try to encourage, you probably want that. And then there's the SAP solutions, which is very specific to SAP. Their application performance monitoring is all encased under the ABAP there, the Advanced Business Application Programming, but largely it comes with everything else the enterprise licensing comes with. And that's all under the application monitoring packages. And then you also have the end user monitoring. The end user monitoring, for those of you that are unfamiliar with it, end user monitoring means everything that is customer facing. So if they're on your website, if they are on your application or your web app, or your mobile app, whatever they are on, engaging with if you're e-commerce website, or say that you're a bank or a loan service or a background check service, whatever, that front facing website or interaction with the customer is all end user monitoring. Now, when you're dealing with the peak, you are going to get everything. You're going to get real user monitoring. You're going to get the analytics along with it. And then you're also going to get experience journey maps. So it's just, you get the full picture end to end and understand the breakdown of how your website is being used, what flows or which journeys you have defined for your users to go through. You'll get a lot of good insight there. And then you'll also, there's also an option if you don't need all of those analytics and you don't need to see so clearly how your website or your web app or your mobile app is functioning, then you can just go with the Pro, and you'll either get the browser real user monitoring, mobile real user monitoring, and just that. You'll understand your crashes, you'll understand, what code errors you have, but you won't get to see deep analytics where you can query against the data that's in the controller, and then also use that to start defining specific journeys within your web app flow that you want to see exactly if there's a break or anything like that. You would have to kind of go with general knowledge of looking how the mobile app or the web app or website's working, but you wouldn't have that spelled out for you. You wouldn't be able to access those experience journey maps. So this is kind of the breakdown with the newer infrastructure-based license model. And again, this is more common for people that have newly purchased Splunk AppDynamics after early in 2021. But it's meant to allow you to only purchase what you're going to utilize. But since it's almost never the case where people just get, one thing and not another, they always want something to complement, be able to look at things from different views, get that full end-to-end monitoring solution in place. And so most of the time, things are coupled together, and that's why the licensing changed this way. Now, when you're actually already signed up with the infrastructure-based licensing, in the controller, you actually have a nice, simple license summary, and you can start to understand, based on which products are being coupled together or which products are being utilized, you would be able to start understanding the usage based on that. And then each one of these is clickable, and you can go in and start seeing, from high level to drill down into each one of these and start seeing a breakdown. An example would be, say that I clicked on one of these, and then I clicked on enterprise, and now I'm able to see the complete breakdown, the usage over time, as well. I can adjust that time frame. The little time picker looks very similar to what we use in APM and other parts of the controller. Up at the top right, it usually has that time picker, And for the usage over time here, you can just go and you can simply click on, that and pick a different time frame, and that way you can see a time series graph based on, during busy times you have this much usage, during non-busy times, this is the usage, and then you can start really understanding what your usage is going to be at, and that becomes very important for managing your usage. And then you also can scroll down and see all the analytics that are affiliated with the agents under the enterprise packages that you have purchased or you have allocated. And then, like I said before, everything in enterprise would be things that are coupled together. So you have APM, you have all your infrastructure monitoring needs taken care of, and then you also have analytics. You have BIQ, where you can start to use the machine learning to start putting together real business context against the performance of your application or digital. Sorry about that. I had a drop out for just a moment, waiting to see if I get this back. Okay, it seems to be working again. I'm so sorry for that delay. Okay, it seems to be working again. I'm so sorry for that delay. Okay, it seems to be working again. I'm so sorry for that delay. So let's just kind of step back for a moment and come back to where we were before. I'm not sure exactly where it died out. I just wanted to show you guys that you would be able to control or look at what kind of licensing you are utilizing using this time picker here, much like what you normally would see at the top right when you're in other parts. If you come down, you look at the usage over time, you can get a time series graph of understanding exactly what is being used. So if you have a high or low time of the day, you can understand that. You can kind of start understanding of the maximums, what you would need for some sort of disaster recovery. And it really lets you know if you're really scoped out right for your license usage and projected license usage. Becomes very important. And then analytics, just adds a lot of insight into what you're monitoring, making sure that your business priorities are aligned with what the performance of the application is capable of. So meaning if the application goes down, how much money are you guys losing, or how much how much is it impacting the users, etc. So let's go ahead and jump over into the more classic agent-based model. Now, before 2021, February 23rd, that is the classic. That is the way that we did our licensing. We were doing this for a very long time before that, and it's really kind of simple to explain. It was 1-to-1, but at the same time, if you are running microservices, then the agent is 5-to-1. So, so if you have 5 microservices running on a box, and then we would charge you for 1 license, and it would be shared across 5 microservices running on one machine, not across many, but across one. Now, if you have obviously, if you're running clusters and multiple pods on one machine and everything else, then that's not a problem, and that's just how it works. But if you're trying to do this at a large scale, it gets very complex. And as you can tell, this is where we start. This is where it was starting to get a little bit too complex. It even had to get color coded to make sense to a lot of people, and that's why we simplified it with the infrastructure based model. So as you can tell, there's APM for microservices, and that's all under peak, and then advanced, and then there's pro, and a separate breakdown for each one. If this is more of what you have, then I do want you to understand it, but I also want you to understand why we went away from it, because it does get very complex. But at the same time, it's kind of like an a la carte menu at a restaurant. If you don't necessarily want the chicken cordon bleu or whatever thing you're eating at a nice restaurant, you don't want all the sides, you don't want the potato or the salad or the soup or whatever, and you just want that piece of chicken, you can see if you can buy that item a la carte and pay for only what you're getting. And sometimes a bundled deal would be better. It would have been more cost effective if you wanted the rest of that stuff. But at the same time, if you don't, then it's more cost effective to just get what you want. And that's what the classic agent-based model is all about. You pick and choose what you need. But in terms of trying to come in and really assess what you need, it's obviously a lot more on you guys, especially to know your projected use, and it's also a lot more on our architects to help you decide how much to get. So just looking up at the top and following it down, so we're going to start with the peak. The peak offerings would be APM any language, you get the transaction analytics, you get your infrastructure monitoring. But database is kind of considered to be more by itself. So this is more just for the APM side of things. But then you also have, end user monitoring, a separate, peak versus advanced versus pro, handled all under just regular of the guise of end user monitoring. And then you have business performance, where it's more of the transaction analytics, and the BIQ, being able to reference performance indicators back to real world business outcomes, or maybe consequences. If you're a loan office, and you can't and people can't submit an application, oh hey, your bottom line is probably going to be impacted. So things like that. It's pretty logical to understand why you would need what, when, but at the same time, let's just keep going down here. Now, SAP is always always going to be a little bit special. And now if we go look at advanced, it has APM. It does not have transaction analytics, and it does not have any of the BIQ, and it just has network and server visibility. And then for microservices, it's a little bit different. That's why it's always separated out away from APM, as opposed to just one for one. These are 5-to-1 in usage just for APM. That's not the same for infrastructure visibility. And then there's Pro, where it's just they call it Pro, but really it's kind of like what's the bare essentials that we need. And they might not have an infrastructure that they want to monitor. They might just want the application performance monitoring with our powerful bytecode instrumentation. That alone does a really good job for a lot of people. But at the same time, why not try to understand what's going on the hosts, what's going on in the containers, what's going on in the network, the databases, etc. And then a lot of times database is kind of seen by itself, separate. Unless it's SAP, it just comes as a set standard with Peak. So, this is kind of the breakdown. This is on the documentation, which I can send out links to in the chat as well. Post them in the description once this is a post recording, and it's just out there living forever out on YouTube. I'll have those links down in the description below. And now the dashboard rather. The dashboard that you would go to if you have agent based is something like this. You kind of see everything kind of clumped up together, and depending on what agent you want to understand their usage of, you would either scroll down in here or click on the agent, and it'll give you kind of a breakdown. All of these things, I'm not going to be able to show you some of these things because it has kind of personal or private information. So if you ever really need somebody to walk you through your controller, please put in a call a consultant request, and one of our customer success engineers will join you, kind of walk you through what you have and how to visualize it, or reach out to your account team and either try to set that up with either whoever is assigned on the account. Now, if we wanted to start looking at application level licensing, I can click here. If I wanted to scroll down, it'll give me a breakdown of EUM, synthetics, and the various options that, what other monitoring options there are, and monitoring solutions that you have, allocated to your controller. Kind of an example would be like this. If I wanted to also see what kind of data storage is in there, I can see, how much is being used. And, these are all options that you have to look around in there to find out, how things are being used. It becomes very important because you need to know, do you need to increase your amounts? Do I need to talk to the account team and maybe, start increasing or start, planning for an increase? Things like that. And then you always have access to changing the The time frame. This one, in the classic one, it's very much in the same spot it always is for all the other parts of the controller. And I actually think that these got moved around a little bit versus what's in the documentation and where this picture came from. So I'll show you that a little bit too in the demo. But ultimately, it summarizes how many one-to-one relationships you have of licensing and what you've purchased, and how much you are using that, again, through one-to-one. Instead of saying, oh, okay, you have premium, which is our best offering, and it comes with infrastructure monitoring, it comes with this, it comes with that, versus, hey, you have one Java application, you're buying one Java application monitoring license, things like that. Or microservices, you're buying 5. Now, there's also add-on products. Now, if you are interested in expanding your use of Splunk AppDynamics, say that you have Splunk Core or for logs, or say that you were one of the ones that were majorly hit back in around 2020, 2021, where the log4j just messed you up and you never want that to happen again. What other kind of offerings do we have, and are they a part of the same licensing, or are they additional licensing? So in our extensibility, for infrastructure monitoring, synthetic monitoring, IoT connected devices, log analytics, and secure application, these are all things that you can add on. If you don't already have it, or if you don't already get it from the package that you're in, like I said earlier, if you had premium, then you're going to also get the infrastructure monitoring along with that. But there might be additional allocations that you need, or you might need synthetic monitoring. We have a very powerful, Selenium or JavaScript, depending if it's API or if it's going to go and act like a user. We have a really powerful library of example scripts or ways to get started in your synthetics. A lot of them, we actually have some amazing videos on the synthetic monitoring on this YouTube channel, so I highly recommend you guys watching those if you are using that. But okay, focusing back on licensing purchasing, right? If you need something in addition to what you already have, you can add it on, and these are the add-on packages that are separate from that Premier and the advanced options that I showed you earlier. And that would be more, whether it's the infrastructure based modeling or if it's the one-to-one just agent, you have options of buying these a la carte no matter what. And then depending on, the secure application is going to be the one that's sitting there, since our agent's already sitting in the code, looking at things, going in and out. Secure application could be looking at your libraries and determining if there's vulnerabilities in those, like the log4j scenario. It would have caught it. It would have been able to prevent it, and you would have been able to, tell it in the UI of the controller, hey, make this work temporarily while securing me, and at the same time, I want to be able to fix this later, but don't let anything bad happen to me right now. You have those kinds of availability of tools and things that you can click on, or points of interest in the controller in the UI, instead of like I had to do at the time. I had to mass deploy hundreds and thousands of agents to fix secure application, or I'm sorry, to fix log4j issues, in addition to obviously the applications themselves that had issues, where secure application could have saved me a lot of that upfront overhead, and I could have chunked it out over time because I have something so powerful that's so easy to use, like secure application. Log analytics is a little less used. IoT devices, are a little less used. That's why it's a part of the add-on packages. Synthetics isn't a mandatory thing either. That's why it's a part of there as well. And then additional infrastructure monitoring. So we kind of went up and down that list. I'm not going to do the same thing on this one, but these are the freebies. You know, Splunk AppDynamics has been around for a very long time, and people are like, "Oh, it's just been around so long. Why would we want to use something that's older?" It's only matured with age. It's like a fine wine. It only gets better. And then we're actually still putting a lot of R&D and money and coupling it with other powerful parts of our own monitoring solutions, in addition to other companies, third parties. So you have a lot of options. Splunk, you know, the greater suite of Splunk observability tools that Splunk AppDynamics is now a part of, you know, we're getting integrated into all of that. So you're going to get you're going to start seeing, you know, log observability connect, you know, in terms of, you know, if Splunk is already digesting all of the logs of the application that Splunk AppDynamics is monitoring, then you would be able to have a button there in the under your APM side of things, or when you're looking at snapshots, if there's any logs affiliated, you just click on it and it'll bring you over to Splunk Core into where the logs are. It'll run a query for you for everything associated with what it's seeing on the APM side on AppDynamics. And then it allows you to kind of understand that full picture. Splunk AppDynamics does a great job of looking end to end, but sometimes the log message is unclear, and going direct to the source will give you that little extra tidbit to fully understand the root cause. And that is something that is free. It is, as long as you have Splunk and AppDynamics, connect them together, it's free. It's awesome. The monitoring correlation. Now, if you have EUM and AppDynamics, obviously the individual licenses or pooled licenses, you know, they're not free necessarily, but correlating them together, making everything talk to each other, getting that full end to end, that part's free. And then what about integrations with alert and respond? What if you have a Snow or ServiceNow, as better known, right? What if you have ServiceNow? What if you have Jira? What if you have PagerDuty? What if you have Mir3? Whatever, you know, sort of monitoring or incident management or ticketing system that might need to be integrated, that's free. Say that you already have database monitoring and you want to do custom queries against that database using AppDynamics and bringing in custom metrics from that. That's free. So as long as you have AppDynamics and at least database, you know, infrastructure monitoring, then you would be able to do all these custom cool things and bring in additional custom metrics that you weren't expecting to be able to have, and that would be free. And then you also have extensions. So we have machine agents, we have we have server infrastructure monitoring agents. Basically, you have a machine agent, which is like a basic infrastructure monitoring agent, and then the upgraded version of it is the SIM, server infrastructure monitoring agent. So basically, you have a machine agent on steroids as the SIM. There's already a lot of built-in things that you can use in there, but if there's not the right metrics that you're still not finding something, and you want to expand it further, and you want to get additional visibility into your digital landscape, you can either create an extension, or you can take an old extension that someone else used, and you can modify it to work with maybe Redis, or maybe Apache or Nginx, or something where you might not be getting the right level of metrics that you're wanting on the APM side. Maybe you're wanting to know how many things are in the queue for Kafka, or how many topics there are being consumed, stuff like that. Extensions are widely available, and they're not necessarily, you know, they're not up to Cisco or Splunk AppDynamics to maintain, but they're relatively easy to maintain. You just update the Maven packages. But if you're in the field and you're looking at getting something that you can't, you're going to be looking at all these, open source things of, trying to do it. You're going to be reinventing the wheel, versus if you just make an extension, you can have it put into the same place with all the rest of your monitoring, and it just extends it so much more. It's really cool. It could be as simple as running a local script on the server or in the pod, or looking at the all the Windows services that are running, in addition to what you're already seeing in the SIM agent. There's so much stuff. There's I can spend a whole hour just explaining what you can get from an extension, and that might be something that we're going to have video links out for later on. But it's free. Now let's start looking at licensing rules. Now, if you have a lot of people consuming your licenses, meaning lots of teams with different applications or different parts of the same application, it's and say that there's a disaster and they're just say that it's a shopping day, the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday, everyone's going crazy trying to buy up all the deals, and then the demand on your website or your e-commerce site it triples what it normally is, and you want to keep that monitoring going. Now, when we're sizing licensing, we typically try to work with you to go over what your highest point would be, and then add a little bit more for these exact types of situations. There's also situations where sometimes you can ask for a temporary amount, but in best case scenario is to make sure that you're not caught without enough licensing. And then at the same time, if you have multiple people pulling from the same pool, you don't want team A to be pulling team B's licenses unless they're allowing it. Say that you have some sort of chargeback model where the shared services team charges each application individually for their licenses or for AppDynamics. So they should only be allotted what they paid for in those types of situations. So licensing rules become very important, and they're very easy to use. And we'll show a demo basically of how to set them up. But real quick, let's just kind of go over. You want to make sure that you split up the you want to simplify your use of licenses, and you can do that with these rules. So you can say this licensing rule has they're allowed to use so many licenses only for these assigned applications. So you'll have a scope of where they can be used. Again, this gets a little confusing, but as soon as I get into the demo, you'll be like, oh, I get it. So bear with me for a moment. Basically the licensing rule defines how your AppDynamics licenses are used towards your applications. If you choose not to create any rules, then your license allocation follows the default rule, and basically everybody will be pulling from the same pool, and that could be good or bad depending on how things are set up within your organization, or if you have a chargeback model and things like that. So basically, to simplify license reporting in a cluster or a containerized, it's very important to make sure that the agents are using the same licensing rules. Don't break them up. Don't go too crazy with these licensing rules, in essence. So they're very useful, they're very good, but you can go overboard. You can accidentally, if you have multiple clusters that or multiple things talking to each other constantly, you might want to pool those licenses up together and have them applied to the same scope, but you don't necessarily want to do that in every situation. If application A doesn't talk to application B, then have separate rules. If application A and B talk to each other, you might want to consider consolidating those, things like that. But, get in there, start messing with it, and start seeing how things perform or how things react. In most cases, though, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty, you should be able to quickly determine what it's going to do. And now this is the licensing rule. So now I mentioned earlier that I think some of the pictures that I had earlier where that menu was up here up top where it had license summary, reporting, license rules, account, all that stuff up here. Also, this is a controller that we use with a bunch of stuff, extra stuff turned on, because it's one that we have to familiarize to make sure to, we're effective when we talk to you, our customers, or users that are just trying to pick it up and trying to improve their resume and start to understand the observability tools that are out there, especially leading ones like Splunk AppDynamics. But I want to really focus on looking at these licensing rules, and I want you to start to understand when you're creating a licensing rule, what kind of things can I use to break it up. Also, I'm just realizing this is probably tiny for you, so let me make this bigger. All right, so hopefully that's better. And now I'm going to say YouTube live example app 1. So now that I have a name in there, which is a required field, I can come down here and I can say, you know what, it's currently, there's 201 available, or no, I'm sorry, there's 64 of 201 licenses available. So I'll use 10. And then you should, in real time, see this first number shift based on what I assign it in here. And then this one should always match what APM I am using. So I'm going to use 10 there, machine agent. Server visibility. This is the one where I was telling you it's like a machine agent on steroids. So, to cover all of those, I want to, make all of these much better than the basic. So I'm going to just put 10 there as well. And then each one of those server visibility agents, I also want to make sure that they have network visibility on those. Or if I'm only going to be running maybe, and I should say also, a server visibility agent is also what a cluster agent is using. So if you're using if you're using a cluster agent, it will pull from server visibility, and then you might have a network visibility agent associated with that cluster agent, and you might not need as many, since you can use a cluster agent to be watching a whole cluster as opposed to one individual server, depending on your environment. This is where you can start to pick and choose and make sure that you are appropriately set up. So it looks like this is actually over provisioned. So I would have to go into one of those other rules and I would have to start modifying it. So I can't use these ones. But now, depending on, do I want it to be scoped by application or server? I'm going to go by application, and I'm going to go and look at AD. Let's just type in games. I'm going to use this AD games dev. And then say that I want to, start, say that there's more than one application, or even say that I want to be able to specify that a different application might show up. I might want to say games. I might want to say show, and then I might want it to be dynamic. So now 80 games demo. I might want to select that. And now include dynamic ones. It's going to find everything that comes up with the word games in it. So if you set up a dynamic scope, I'm sorry, it's kind of a weird thing to explain. If you set up a dynamic scope, everything with that keyword will get applied to this rule dynamically. Otherwise, I don't want to have that, and I just want to do one or the other. I might just want it to be, let's just do this again. And I say select application and I say games. I might just want it to be a very specific application. And now the rules that if I use this license rule on any application that's not 80 Games Inc. dev, it'll get rejected by the controller. It'll say, no, sorry, you're not the right application. But now if it's a dynamic rule, here, we'll unselect all again. We'll say select and we'll say games. I'm going to say show, and I'm just going to hit dynamic. I can just go and hit, I'll put the couple in here that I want. Actually, I think I can leave it blank and just hit select. And then I'll say use dynamic one. So anything with games that comes up will automatically be a part of this scope. So if I create a net new application that says 80 games test, 80 games QA, 80 games, whatever. Say that you have a multi-shared or multi-environment, like, say that your SIT and your QA and your dev are all in the same thing and they go up and down as they please, but they're all owned by the same team. You might want a dynamic rule to be set there. Same thing might be said if they might just want to select a specific application and they don't want it to be dynamic. You can do it that way. If you want it to be dynamic because of the multi-environment controller, the dynamic rules are awesome for that. Now if you're dealing with a server scope, I love dynamic rules for this, because say that you have a server named PAZ. It's maybe it's in a data center in Arizona. So everything starting with PAZ will automatically be assigned this license. Awesome. Very cool. Can you imagine you have a team that has 30 servers that go up and down at all times, and you don't know when, and it might turn off for months at a time because it's disaster recovery. And then if there's ever a disaster, you're already on fire, you're already underwater, you're already in crisis mode, and then oh wait, I gotta go apply these license rules also. Oh man, that's not fun, especially as an admin. So save yourself some trouble. Learn how to use these dynamic rules. Make it easy based off of naming. It's your standard stuff, man. Regex, contains, ends with, starts with, equals. I mean, anyone that uses Excel or knows how to do business transaction rules or whatever, things like this, you're probably already very familiar with it. And if you're not, don't feel embarrassed. Just ask us. We will jump in and help you right away. We want you to get the most value out of what you've purchased and what you're using. So again, the call a consultant track is really good, or go to your account team and they would be able to, either find the customer success engineer that can jump in and help you, or also support too. If you're having a real bad time and it's more of a support issue, reach out to support as well. But if it's something just learning and you can't figure it out from docs, you have a lot of options to get some help, and it's not just something that is paid for. You can get free professional help getting started with your Splunk AppDynamics infrastructure. But while you're doing that, definitely look into these license rules. The fact that these can be dynamic, oh man, amazing. When I used this as an admin multiple years ago at a Fortune 4 insurance company, they did not have this option. It was very difficult for me to maintain, and I had to go way roundabout way to do it. So now you have the full ability to make it a dynamic rule, and it is awesome. So that is the licensing rules in a nutshell. And let's go ahead, and now we went over time a little bit, sorry. So as our key takeaways, some best practices that I would love for you to leave and make sure that you're savvy with. Make sure that you understand licensing model that you're on, so you can avoid confusion and making sure that you're utilizing them appropriately. Remember what we were looking at with that chart, where the premier licenses are broken out by what things are coupled together. So if you don't couple them together and you don't have them all turned on, you're missing the machine agent from running, or the SIM agent from running, or the database agent from running, but you have APM on. It might fall under a different bucket and you might be confused as to why. So you need to understand your usage as well, what things are coupled in that specific place, so that you can go and make sure they're all turned on, so you're using the licensing that you have purchased. There's nothing worse than wasting the license that you have. Use it and get the benefit from it. Let the teams that rely on the tool get the benefit from it, and it'll take you far. And then make sure that you're using license rules, especially if you have multiple teams that could be stealing from each other on accident. They don't mean to, but at least if you safeguard, especially if you're a team that has some sort of chargeback model where each team is paying for their own licensing, it's going to be very important to not let them all pull from the same bucket or the same pool. So definitely use those dynamic rules. I can't brag enough about those. Those are so cool. Definitely use those. Get smart with the naming, or start talking to the teams of how they can standardize them if they're not already standardized, so that it helps you. Things like that. There's also, I didn't get a chance to go over it today, but there are health rules that you can set up as an admin. This becomes very important, because you want to make sure you're not over provisioning licensing rules for certain teams that didn't purchase them, or whatever.
Hey, Calvin.
Whatever the case may be.
Hey, Bill.
And then you also want to make sure that you follow up with the Cisco account team if you have any other questions, or if you need more licenses. So usually if you're a customer, you will already be engaged with these people. You will already have people reaching out. Hey, do you need help? Hey, this is how it's set up, etc. If you feel like you're stuck, reach out, get some help. We're here to help. And you can even reach out to us directly if you need, via the YouTube or the call a consultant, and we are the customer success team for observability tools. So I did not leave a lot of time. Obviously, we're going over. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat, and I'll be sure to answer them. I'm sorry I can't take you off of mute. I don't want your voice needlessly recorded and posted publicly on our YouTube site. But if you have, a desire to dig deeper into our products and start learning more, there's the Cisco community, there's the Splunk community. Everything, all AppDynamics is going to be under the Splunk's community now. We used to have the AppD community. We got moved to the Cisco community, and now our home is finally established under the Splunk community. And then you also have the CSS observability YouTube page, which you're watching this on. So hopefully you're enjoying the content we have there. We work really hard on that and making sure that it's useful. It's all feedback driven. And then there's also, the standard regular tracks. If you're interested in getting certification, you can go to the Cisco University, where you can get certified not only on Splunk AppDynamics, but also, maybe Catalyst Center or security, all the other amazing products from Cisco. And I want to leave you guys on just explaining how important it is that you guys join us on these sessions. Thank you so much for making it a success. Any likes, subscribes, rewatches of these videos, it goes a long way helping the algorithm to make sure that more of our customers are exposed to this content that we offer for free, on demand, or live. And it takes a community to make anything a success. And our community reaching out to us with feedback, our community watching our videos, liking, subscribing, showing up, it all helps us. And thank you so much for joining today. From all of us at Cisco, and again, my name is Christopher Bonanno, your host and creator of this content. So thank you so much for spending the time with us. Take care and have a great rest of your day.